On today's Minute Apes, by a majority vote of the commission finds no solid evidence for hostility by either co-host towards me as at present constituted in this year of our Lord, 2019.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape! Exercise with an ape maker, human doll. It talks. We are the keepers of the divine bound. It is our only reason for survival. We are determined to know what the apes want, war or peace. The only good human is a dead human!
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. It's Tuesday. I'm Todd. Each of you have a T name, right? No, it's Sean and it's Richard. Tuesday is Todd.
Oh, okay.
Saturdays, it's Sean.
There is no R day.
Yeah, I'm kind of left out of this one.
Wednesdays, it's Richard.
Wednesdays? What do we, Scooby-Doo? Wednesdays.
Wow, I didn't know you did characters. That was awesome.
It's the only one I got.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Actually, going back, there was one of the movies where you read a lot of the script and you shifted around in different characters as you read it.
Oh.
And during the build-up to this, while I'm testing some audio levels, Richard starts reading from the script, and I just suggested, I think we need to just
do the script.
Yeah, just Richard reading the script. I think that'd be great. All right, minute 62. Sean, why don't you tell us what's going on?
All right, we start minute 62 with Hasline asking the orderly to take the female ape to its quarters, and ends with the head of the committee saying that the female's case is different.
All right, let's take a listen. Minute 62 of Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
Sir? Please take the female ape to its quarters.
Yes, sir.
We have to get this to the commission immediately.
Gentlemen, I've just received an official notification from the President ratifying the final recommendations made by this commission in light of the tape recordings delivered to us by Dr. Hasline. Now, if you'll just be seated, we'll get right down to business. Now, let me review our conclusions. 1. By a majority vote, the commission finds no solid evidence for hostility by either ape towards the human race as at present constituted in this year of our Lord, 1973.
Mr. Chairman,
Let me remind you that this was by a majority vote. The male's attitude is that of a deeply interested and well-disposed academician who studied the alleged future downfall of the human race with the true objectivity of a good historian. The female's case is different.
As minute 62, we have a planet's worth of humans plus 2 living apes, 1 who's pregnant, and 1 dead ape.
So right away at the start of this,
attitudes have changed.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Hasline and his minions, which now they really are like the little yellow minions to me, they have a very dark underside to their activities. Even though nothing's stated, you just get that sense that shit's going wrong now.
Whenever Hasline changes the pronouns for Zira, says take the ape to its quarters, not even
that's true. It's a good catch.
Her quarters.
Right.
Even though she's not a human, he is dehumanizing her, making her into an object instead of somebody that you relate to.
Right.
So there was a direction here for what the orderly should look like. That I guess is kind of close, but not real, not necessarily true. Dane wanted a young, white-coated, muscular, blonde, and good-natured male orderly who enters. He's then also described later on in another minute as the same blonde orderly. And I don't know if that's why we had that kiss flashback and then a minute before with Taylor. Like, they want to build some association with Zira and a blonde person?
Or is it more the Aryan race kind of thing that Hitler did, where that blonde, pure body? I wonder if that's not
what they're trying to
what
evoke?
He was exactly that he might visually just trying to be. He's trying to evoke the idea of a little bit more purity.
Reflecting upon that, if I think about E1, his kind of soft blonde hair, weird mustache, and piercing blue eyes may have been meant to be the same,
right?
the focus in on that. I mean, that would make sense why we would, we'd have the Dodge comment the minute before. I don't know. There's a little bit of bringing that idea into it feels a little bit of a reach even for Dane to do, but that may have been his intention because that kind of sounds like it now.
Right. Well, I also noticed in this minute that how hard it is sometimes when you watch films like this, and this would be the time if I was sitting with my 16-year-old daughter that I would have to say, okay, I know in your day and age, if you recorded someone, it would just be a digital file that you kick to the commission. But here they are doing the archaic idea of taking the reels off the machine, and we have to get this to them. Now, I did find, and to flash forward into other minutes, there's going to be an example of what I'm talking about here very soon. But I found this so tedious where we talked about that idea of how much they shoot exactly what is going on. This was such an example to me where they're taking the tape off the tape machine, and then we cut over to the commission. There should have been a match cut of what they're saying to someone's hand, maybe cueing a tape or stopping a tape player that then pulls back from a tape player and we see the commission. So you're cutting between the two, and we don't have to say this has to be taken to them. It's just shown that we've played it for it. This is so stinking tedious.
They do like showing everything.
This is the worst example of it to me, where it almost kills the momentum. We've had a true momentum shift where Zero's, confessing things are out there. There's some urgency to this, and the cutting of the film and the language of the film stops the urgency.
So for the audience, basically they're in the room. Zero says, Cornelius, the microphone is moved away. Hassline says she needs a nap. And this minute picks up with Hassline calling the orderly in, who then helps Zero out, and we see Hassline and the two agents kind of dart to the tape deck that was in the previous room where the interrogation was being held in the office. We see him pull the wheel. We see the door open, Zero being carried out of the room back into the hallway, and then we immediately just cut to this giant wide shot up above the commission. We're in the back of the room, at the top of the room, looking down on the commission, kind of casually hanging about the table, like there's no urgency in this moment of them at the thing.
Right.
Dane did want them to, based upon the script, he wanted to tight on the commissioner and then pull back to reveal the entire commission.
Okay.
Specifically to Hassline. So he wanted something with a little more urgency at that moment when we cut to the commission.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to go from the reel right to this commission. There are small things you kind of notice, like the secretary that's in the office outside of the interrogation room. It was just kind of funny to watch her, like, okay, I have to do something now. And so she kind of stacks her papers together and then kind of shuffles them and then starts reading and acts like she's about to put one in the typewriter, but realizes she can't make noise and then picks it back up. Like, you begin to notice all the small details of what everybody around is doing.
Right. And see, I think that there are so many ways you could have cut this. Let's say they stick with the guys taking the tape off. You could have done the whole take the tape, give it to that woman.
Right. And then
she takes a sheet of paper, bump, and starts typing. And then it goes to maybe a flip of the paper and we see the head of the commission reading that.
Right.
So you could either do one of those two things where it's a hard cut where somebody's playing back for the commissioner from the tape or something. But the transition of this is so bad.
Well, on top of that, what is the urgency of getting this tape to the committee? First of all, it's all theoretical, what she's talking about, and it takes place in the future, so there's not a rush to have this fixed because it might not be something they can fix. And so this commission has kind of been given carte blanche from the president, where the president says whatever the committee's final recommendation is, he'll ratify it. Wouldn't he want to actually hear what the recommendation is before he says he'll ratify it? Otherwise, what if they say, our recommendation is we're going to nuke Cincinnati, that'll take care of it. Sign off on that.
That's a good point.
He already said that he would follow the commission's, whatever the commission decides.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But what if the commission decides something radical? Is he, all right, the commission said so, I guess we have to.
Well, I mean, you would assume that,
assume nothing with the government.
You would assume that,
And if anyone heard me just say, oh shit, that's because I've had issues with Sean's mic and he just screamed in there and I watched the levels go. So I'm sorry if that just blew you out. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Richard.
We assume that the people on the commissioner forces that he trusts. We assume that if he needs to, he can call them, he can have them change their decision, which our current president does periodically. We can assume that he can also throw the commission under the bus if he wants to.
True.
So I don't think he's afraid of what the commission decides. The commission, if anything, is a shield for him. Whatever they decide, he can go, it's them, not me.
Well,
because he seemed pretty reasonable minutes earlier talking to Hassline, like, I'll let you pursue this thing.
Right.
Because it sounded like he was saying, Hassline, I will let you hang yourself.
Right.
And I'll abide by whatever the commission decides. So he's trying to play this out. He's trying not to be the one in front. He's using the commission as a shield. And man, we have to talk about this later on this week.
Well, it's funny because my next thought, I had just tossed y'all during mic issues that we've edited out, so none of you have to hear that. But I was curious about the next thing that really hit me is how they almost treated Cornelius with a little reverence towards his activity. Hey, he was a good historian. And it almost feels like, and I can't really say this because this is more tomorrow's, but the focus or the determination of this panel and almost where the questioning of this entire film has gone has been pointed towards someone or other than Cornelius.
Right.
Therefore, by default, Zira. So we can talk about that tomorrow. It's just a very odd way. Hey, you know what? Cornelius, he was a good historian. Well, by default, then, okay, good historians just tracking the activities that have come till now, but does a historian also not write history from the point of view that they understand
the winners,
history? Yeah. The winner determines it. Cornelius is going to interpret the historical significance of what he finds according to what he understands. It's not necessarily the truth. Therefore, can you really look at him and say he did a good job as a historian without reading historical account of what is given? Damn, that was deep. I feel almost like I'm analyzing Hamilton with my kid.
There seems to be, and it's in this minute, there seems to be kind of a contradictory statement by the commission. The first one saying, finds no solid evidence of hostility by either ape towards the human race at present.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair, too.
Right? Yeah. Then they build up Cornelius, right? Deeply interested, well-disposed, academician. However he said that.
Say that again 3 times real quick.
Academia. I can read it.
It's
okay. It was so hard.
Echinacea.
He said it, and I was like, how's he going to pronounce that? Oh, he just did it. The future downfall of the human race. The female's case is different. Didn't they just say 2 seconds ago
that there's no
evidence
wrong
of
with
hostility?
Yeah.
Like it was a weird, like, we find nothing wrong with the hostility. Cornelius said this. The female's case is different. We're going to hear tomorrow why the female's case is different, but it sounds like, sounds like Hassline manipulated the interrogation to get something, but couldn't make anything stick to Cornelius. I'm just kind of surprised he didn't put Cornelius in that same
we
scenario.
never saw Cornelius being interrogated.
Yeah. Why is Hassline so intense? Because she's the one who's pregnant?
She's the weaker one?
I think you're on it. I think that the coming minutes prove that his whole thing, and it would have been nice to see earlier in the film when her pregnancy became known, that he was a little more like, oh my God, like that's bad.
Well, he did try to, like, I don't know, grape juice plus her.
But, his reaction was not sufficient to set. If we're talking about it'd be nice if they had flashbacks before this, it'd been nice if he'd had a little more, oh God, reaction to the idea that she's pregnant, so that in these coming minutes, I think his actions entirely are now focused on that baby. And I think that's what the script wants us to know too, because, we're going toward this idea that they were fine where they were. What are they like here? What have they done to us here? Well, the big thing that's here now is there's a baby. And so when they die, something lives on that could then go on and further its species with their genetics.
There was a lot of kind of the chairman coming in and going, rah, 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 ratification and commissioned and recommendation and president and commission and majority vote. There was a lot of stuff that he said that was just unnecessary.
Right.
But it would have been nice to see a little bit of the debate between the commission about why. Because he says the go ahead.
The priest is on the minority. What is he arguing? I mean, he's obviously, if he's on the minority, then he's arguing for death or them being violent towards humans.
How did the commission majority vote decide that Cornelius is a nice guy? Like, I would have liked to have had a couple of that debate, because when he says the minority, including the cardinal, becomes sufficiently vocal for the chairman, and the chairman had to add the statement, this wasn't in the script. Let me remind you that this was by a majority vote. That was actually inserted in there. It would have been nice to see that debate. We didn't need all that fluff at the beginning.
Yeah. And usually, you're going to cut into the action of a scene. You're not just going to cut to the end result of a scene. And so it would have been nice to hear them either playing back that Zira knew Taylor So now that we hear the council, she lied to us. Now we almost understand why she's a villain in this moment, but you don't get any of it.
The Taylor reference would have been